one of the best ways I've heard it always said, and again, it comes from the inside out, and I'll quote Maxwell when you talk about culture. Culture is not what you say, it is who you are, right? So when you think about that purpose, it's aligning yourself and bettering yourself and changing yourself from the inside. So the way that you show up, not only to what you do, but maybe to how you interact with everybody on a regular basis is different than it was before. And when you're aligned internally, then it helps you walk daily towards maybe that bigger purpose, or I'll say bigger goal. And I know, Lindsey, one of the things you want to speak to today was like our purpose versus our goals, and that those are kind of two different things.
They are, because when you think about it, and I want to encourage everybody to just think for a moment, okay, over your lifespan of where you are at this moment, how many different types of goals have you had? I know the goals that David, that you and I had, 12 years ago are completely different than what they are now, right? We now, and then we had no kids. Now we have 3 kids. We now have a business together. We have a number of responsibilities. So our goals shift, right? Your goals are constantly shifting. And it's really based on the season of life that you're in at that moment. Hey, what is it? Because some of you are like, hey, look, I've already accomplished this goal. But as far as the purpose is really, it's really your compass. And not that your purpose, I don't want to say it can't change, but I will say it'll evolve. As you grow, as you mature, as you're growing, it will evolve. And, you know, it's always going to continue to evolve as far as when you're moving that business.
It does. And I think, as I spoke to earlier, you know, this is an evolving thing. It is something you're always going to chase. And it comes back to me as you speak to that, you know, goal versus purpose. We also have taught in the past on goal versus growth. And one of the most easiest ways to describe the difference there is if I set a goal, and just say us particularly, we started the business, and I would say primary goal was getting to a point that financially we could pay our bills, maybe have a little bit extra money in the bank, and, you know, do life a little bit different than we were doing it before we started this business. Once you achieve that goal, there begins to set in comfortability and complacency. Complacency then creates nothingness, and that can be the slow death of, now I have gotten so far away from my purpose just because I achieved this goal, right? If you set a goal, you achieve the goal, where do I go now? And sometimes if we set big goals, it could be even worse to achieve the big goal, because now you've achieved this big goal, you've really created some comfortability, and that creates even more of a complacent mindset, or a freedom to live in complacency. So that is the difference. When we set goals and we achieve, we now have to start over again, where if you have shifted yourself internally from a goal mindset to the growth mindset, you know going in that, yes, maybe I have this target, but I also know that growth is my continued effort, and I've achieved this plateau, I've achieved this landmark, but I've not landed on the plateau, right? I've got a landmark, and I'm continuing to go up the hill.
Yes, absolutely. Because when you think about, David, when we partnered with AmeriLife, we had primarily focused on final expense and serving seniors, and they were really about the holistic approach, right? The cross-sell opportunity. And so we really almost had to reinvent ourselves, right? Really shift our perspective to thinking different, that, hey, look, you can do more than one thing in a home. Our clients that we serve can have more than one of our products. And so I know that that's been a very gradual shift. And as far as our agencies and our agents, just helping them see the value in that, but that has been something that we personally had to reinvent ourselves and look at that differently.
Yeah. And if you look at today's landscape, we just talked about it earlier on a call. Take the Medicare world, for instance, and what CMS is doing and the regulations that are coming down that are impacting the way that us as agency owners are playing within the Medicare space. The regulations that CMS is putting on are changing the landscape, and it's forcing people to adapt, right?
Mm-hmm.
The way that I was doing things 10 years ago, the business path that I was on, creating my income, this plan for the future that I had in mind, it is being changed by outside forces at the moment, which are putting pressure on those people to figure out different ways of doing their business. Where when you had if you have that growth mindset, as we did, it's funny because I was telling the story earlier. We were talking. I was talking to a guy that we're getting into some new things with some seminars and some Social Security education and expanding our business. And he said, "Oh, okay, so if you've got AUM, asset under management, in your mind, then yeah, you're going to do this, do this, do this." And I said, hold on a second, right? And it took me back to the day that really we were in the process of building out the HIPE Financial website, and we were just getting started with this podcast, which has been over a year now.
Woohoo!
And I said, yeah, exactly. We are going to be doing some stuff on annuities. We're going to be teaching on annuities. We're going to be big in the retirement space. And at that current time, we were not. We knew nothing hardly about it. And if you wanted help in retirement, we were not the experts that we are today in that field. But it's great to look back. People say, don't get stuck in the past. Don't look in your rearview mirror. But it's also to say it's great to look back and see how far we've come. And it was that a year or 2 years ago, we're talking about, yes, we are going to be in this space. We do need this kind of education. We do need this outlet on our website as something that we can provide to the client. And now you look back at that today, and that's so true in what we're living in. And I think about that as we go forward, right? It's really about vision. It's about the long-term vision and hopefully aligning that vision somewhat to the purpose that you internally have that's feeding you as to why you're going to do it.
Well, and really, in a nutshell, it's about getting uncomfortable, because once you get comfortable, it's time to get uncomfortable again, right? Because you said that's the slow death, right? Is so getting uncomfortable, and no one likes to get uncomfortable, right? If it's too hot or it's too cold, or you're working out and then they're asking you to do 50 burpees or whatever. Like it's about getting that uncomfortableness. So yes.
And if you like that clip, make sure to like and subscribe to more of our content.